TripleKO.
Hey, so Maximilian. Hey, other guy.
What's up?
There's fighting games, right? There's first-person shooters. There's RPGs, Japanese turn-based RPGs. There's Western RPGs, but all of them pale in comparison to the mighty beat 'em up in terms of gameplay depth, narrative. Like, this is a league of its own, the beat 'em up, right? So we can all agree with this, yeah?
Yeah, what's a fighting game?
Game.
Yeah. I've read a couple Wikipedia articles about this. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna try to prop up the fighting game a little bit by putting the beat 'em up and connecting the two and seeing how they've done so throughout the decades, really, and how maybe one wouldn't necessarily exist without the other. There's a question to say about that, but we are of course joined by myself, Matt McMuscles. That is Maximilian Dood to my guess left or right, depending on who's editing this. And then, of course, we have Bannon.
That's a new boss.
We have
Yes, that's exactly how you say it if you're a Starbucks employee. Yeah.
That's got to be annoying. We have Bannon Rudis from Way Forward. You might know his work from all of the various River City blanks, specifically Girls and or Underground from a few years back, since Justin is unfortunately traveling the world like Street Fighter II style.
What a fool!
I think don't forget there's many Justin Wongs all over the world. So he's unfortunately not able to make it today. But if we're going to talk about beat 'em ups and fighting games, I can't think of none better than the director of River City Girls 1 and 2. Thank you for being on the show, Mr. Rudis.
Thank you. And I will wait for the check to clear before I even start saying anything.
Please do.
We're good to go.
Good to go. Still going to bounce
Canadian dollars.
Worthless.
Canadian dollars. Damn it.
Worthless.
Hello, Matthew and Max.
So this is a topic that just kind of like, sort of floated into my head recently, because it's in one way or another, we've kind of talked about this once or like every so often on TripleKO. And one of the things that really kicks it off is talking about just to push ahead a little bit, Cody and Guy from Final Fight being added into Street Fighter Alpha was at the time like maybe not seen as like a big deal that much, but it was looking back on it, because those characters really have been in Street Fighter like several times since then, and other Final Fight characters as well. So back then though, it was kind of like, oh, that's a one-off thing. Oh, that's because it's Street Fighter Alpha. It takes place in the past. But it really seemed like kick off like a thing, at least with Capcom, where they're like, let's just do this all the time. Why not? Why not have both these franchise fan bases like get in on both? Oh, I really like that character. Why don't I play the fighting game version of that? So
and that's
there's
around,
other examples too.
That's around like 1994, maybe 1995, because 94 is a crazy year for Capcom. Like Super Turbo and Children of the Atom, they really started venturing out. So it's probably right around that time frame, 1995 for Alpha 1. And technically, I mean, I'm trying to think of anything else, because there's not a lot of franchises at this time. Probably the first crossover, like actual crossover in a game to take other franchise characters from something else that's different and then stick it together.
Now, what about, when did Hagar show up in Saturday Night Slam Master?
He's good.
Guile's
good.
brother,
Back even further,
Gunlock. Yeah, because the whole Final Fight thing, I swear, I'm going to get it wrong, and somebody's going to scream at me over the internet.
Don't worry, we're used to this on TripleKO.
But the whole thing about Final Fight, wasn't that supposed to be the sequel to Street Fighter? Like, it was supposed to be a brawler.
So I've been researching this a little bit, and I was talking to another YouTuber, Stray Fox, who makes incredible making of documentaries on YouTube. And he was going through old Capcom interviews, like in like translated ones in Japan and stuff. And he found a bit where it basically went, okay, make a sequel to Street Fighter 1, Capcom upper management. And the team at the time, they had just lost their main guys that went over to SNK after Street Fighter 1 was completed. Nishitani, I believe.
Akira Nishitani?
Yeah.
Mr. Fighting Layer EX.
Yes. And they're like, I don't, a street fighting game. Okay. A street fighting game. We'll just make that a street fighting game. What's really popular? Oh, these movies in America are really popular. Like, urban brawlers, the Warriors and Streets of Fire and stuff. Let's just make, hey,
Dirty Dancing,
Pretty Woman, all the majors. And I guess just the success of Double Dragon 2, they're like, let's just make a side-scrolling belt scroller. And they just made Final Fight. And what I can never actually pin down is whether it was legit called Street Fighter 89 or that was like always going to be so.
Well, there's that artwork, right? That definitely says Street Fighter 89.
Yeah, no, it does. But whether that was a change later and they wanted to call it something else, or it was pressure from Capcom marketing or Capcom higher up saying, just call it Street Fighter. And then they're like, well, no, let's just call it something else. It's not really Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Then when that was a big success, they asked that team, well, now make a sequel to Final Fight. And they said, well, no, now we want to make a sequel to Street Fighter.
Yeah.
We don't want to make another side-scrolling brawler. Let's do something else that's different. And that's kind of how they sort of intersected very, very early on. One was meant to be a sequel for the other and the reverse.
Right.
So in terms of Hagar appearing in Saturday
and
Night
don't forget
Slam
Fighting Street.
What about Fighting Street?
Was that like the Amiga Street Fighter?
That was like the Turbo
Graphics. Yeah. Like it's even more confusion. Throw it in there.
So in that recently released brawler that we talked about, Max, Gigabash, where you're giant monsters and you're crashing around things, there's a character that's a building that fights back.
So the equivalent of a modern day Daytona car.
It's the equivalent of modern day Daytona car or a street fighting back. Because Fighting Street just made me think of like an entire section of sidewalk and streets. It's like, I'm ready. So
there is Danny the Street in DC Comics.
What does Danny the Street do?
He is an actual sentient street. He's actually in the what is that show with the robot? Brandon Fraser.
Yes.
XLR, yes.
Yes, thank you.
Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol,
thank you. Yeah, Danny the Street is an actual sentient street.
All right, I have to look that up. But that Final Fight Street Fighter connection, wait, you know what? What actually predates all of this? Chun-Li in the background of Final Fight 2. And Final Fight 2, I want to say, is 93.
Yeah, there's a big
jump in Urban Champion.
Jump in time between Final Fight 1. Like, Final Fight 1 is 1990, 1991? 89. Okay.
89.
So that's 4 years. That's for the arcade days, that's massive that it would take that long to eventually get another title out.
Yeah. And going back to Saturday Night Slam Masters, Hagar's profile says a former Street Fighter champion. And I think in even the English version of Final Fight, in his profile, it says like former Street Fighter. Like, so he was a former wrestler and Street Fighter. I'm not sure. It's just so weird when you talk about this in depth because it's like Hagar's never been in a Street Fighter game. And as far as we know, in Street Fighter 6, we still don't know if he's dead or not. It's going to be a sad day.
He's been immortalized in some way, living or dead.
Like the only person that gets that is Dave Lang. That's the only person that gets to be immortalized before they're actually dead. So I don't know if it'll happen for Hagar, but you know, the connect.
And like I said, Gunlock, that is Guile's brother canonically.
So we talked about this not too long ago. Gunlock being Guile's brother is a Capcom USA thing. In the Japanese version, it does not mention this. In Muscle Bomber, does not mention that. But the translator or whatever guy from Capcom USA is like, I'm continuing this lore of mine. This is mine. And in Street Fighter, the movie, guess what? Blade, the Bison Trooper generic guy, they're like, he's actually Gunlock in disguise.
Of course he is. His name is Charlie Gunlock.
The funniest part about it is that, like, you would like to think that there are several, like, CUSA producers, like, getting together and, like, holding a meeting. They got these, like, diagrams and lines going, but he's related to him, gave birth to this child, had this child several years later. And it's just like, no, some executive is like, fuck it, just give him this name. Just give him that name, like, haphazardly the day of.
That's like when Max was working on KI trailers, he snuck his own lore, like from all of his years of content creation and streaming. He's like, I'm gonna get my own jokes in there.
Are we talking KIs in Killer Instinct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was literally just drawing Orchid.
As you should.
Right before this.
As you should.
New Orchid or like classic booty Orchid?
Old rectangle.
Yeah, there you go.
Orchid.
booty copter Orchid. So
that's so weird. That's my old prison name. That's so weird to hear it after all these years.
Just good memories, fresh memories.
Yeah.
Aside from like just those early Capcom connections, though, when I'm going back to it, and I've been playing a lot of Double Dragon recently, as I told you guys before we started recording. I'm not prepared to tell you why, but because they couldn't get 2-player working in the NES port of Double Dragon 1. They just technically couldn't do it. The team was like one of their first NES games or something, or like they just couldn't get it done. So they're like, well, why don't we put a versus fighting game mode? That's really what the kids are into nowadays, right? And it was still really early on. Street Fighter 2 hadn't even come out. So there's a selection of characters. The sprites are bigger and there's like more moves and stuff. And it's presented like a fighting game. And going back,
even as a kid, that blew my mind that the sprites were bigger.
Oh, you
like,
just technically?
The very fact that I was like, oh, that's like, even as a kid, I knew I was like, oh, somebody had to draw this, but then somebody had to draw this.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was like, as a kid, I knew that was a technical marvel.
Like the comparison today of like, all these flashy particle effects and stuff like that sort of like dominate the screen that we sort of look at now. In that time frame, it was the size of the characters, right? You had like these giant things, and like that was one of the things that made Mega Man kind of interesting, was that its bosses were huge. It was like, look at that, that's so weird and crazy. And when you eventually got characters that were just bigger, which is what SNK was good at doing, they knew that. It was just visually the most impressive looking shit on the market.
Yeah, like bigger sprites meant more power.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like it was like that.
All the megabytes.
It's like the classic.
That's
the Samurai Showdown arcade compared to Samsho on SNES, and you're like, oh,
true.
What the hell am I looking at?
Like that's the modern equivalent of like big polygon pushing techniques nowadays. Like what's the thing? What's the thing that you put on now? I forget the name of it. When you go into every AAA game, you can turn this tracing on. Ray tracing, thank you. Yeah. Bigger sprites equals ray tracing. So the other game that reminded me of this, maybe Max will smile at this, is just like when I saw bigger sprites, I was like, oh, it was just Predator on the NES. When you got to these bigger side-scrolling levels.
Big mode, yeah.
It was called Big Mode.
Oh, I remember.
Bannon, write this down for any future games you put in Big Mode.
I'm going to put it in our notes here. Okay. Big mode. Okay.
It was funny because we had like a NES night a few years back, and I threw in Predator, and I was like showing the guys, I'm like, trust me, guys, there's this big mode thing in here, fucking somewhere. It is so far into the game, man.
It's
like,
really.
I'm like, where is it? We're gonna have to dedicate like 3 hours to this damn game to show my friends big mode, and we never got to it.
Just getting through the regular levels is like
a pain in the ass.
Big mode is your reward, and the bastards, they put big mode on the back of the box to make you go, ooh. And when they're like really basic, bad side-scrolling levels that are like 10% of what you do in the game. But yeah, like Double Dragon 1's versus mode, I haven't played that specifically in like quite a while, but I remember it being better than you'd think it was. Like, if we can't put 2-player co-op play, we got to do something at least halfway decent there. And that's my memory of it. Have you guys?
It was incredibly unbalanced, right?
That would not surprise me.
Just pick a Bobo, pick like Chin, and just call it a day. You could even play as like Williams, but he had maybe 2 moves. But I remember all like, just pick the big guys.
And this was the NES version.
Sprites.
This was the NES version, right?
The NES version, yeah.
This is the only one that had that. Like every other console could like do it, or they just didn't have the versus mode. It was like an NES exclusive. And what's sad is that they didn't continue that in future ports, even though they did have co-op. I think most of them, if not all of them, lacked like a versus component if they were either planned for a point or they scrapped them altogether. But like, there's a lot more Double Dragon stuff later where it's like Double Dragon had not 1, not 2, but like technically 3 fighting game spinoffs all of its own. But We'll get to that. The one thing I wanted to move on to is like,
and they were all trash.
Yeah. Today's episode is also sponsored by PayPal Honey, the easy way to save shopping on your iPhone or computer. Max, Christmas just finished. Did you use PayPal Honey for anything with the family? I did not get a chance to this Christmas, but I mean, your family is much bigger than mine, so.
Suddenly rapidly increasing in size. Yes, I find like me and Justin, for us that have commodities and things that we have to easily pick up and just try to grab as soon as possible and get shipped out as soon as possible. Stuff like this is really helpful. And considering like how many coupons and savings you can get on the internet and how you can get essentially something that brings it all together, which is what Honey does, has been super helpful. So Ripley has been shockingly growing out of her clothes at a surprising rate. So she got a lot of clothes for Christmas from us and from friends and family. And I would just recommend some of my friends and family to use this. And it has worked out great. So for anybody that is actively trying to get something that could have potential coupon codes, Honey's been a reliable resource for that.
Yeah, and Honey just doesn't work on desktops. It also works on your iPhone too. Just activate it on Safari on your phone and you can save on the go. You can get PayPal Honey for free at joinhoney.com/TKO. That's honey.com/TKO. Thanks again to Honey for sponsoring today's episode. Special move inputs, because just talking about gameplay, special move inputs eventually making their way into beat 'em ups was like a big thing, like specifically for me at a certain time. I want to say like the late 90s, stuff like, you know, Final Fight 3, or even another big Capcom 1994 game, Max, AVP Arcade.
Sure.
I was waiting for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, how I'm about to ask, and like the way forward offices, Bannon, is AVP just really highly regarded? But and you're in a companion of people that love beat 'em ups, right? Obviously, you guys are like creating a franchise of one that's going to this day. Is it that beloved, or is it just me and Matt?
I swear nobody has ever talked to me about AVP, the arcade at work. Like nobody's ever brought it up. Like the very thing so the big difference between Final Fight and AVP is how they handle combos.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So if you are playing Guy, if you're playing Cody, Guy does this thing.
Yeah.
He is planted. He is not moving. The enemy wiggles. That's why you can turn around and hit somebody like this. You're not moving at all. Everybody just stays stationary. And they do the little hit wiggle for a bit there. AVP, they have throngs and hordes of the xenomorphs coming at you. So they did a thing that I have always taken from that series, is the fact that I call it a boxer pushing somebody up against the ropes. So if you play AVP, you can see each hit is making them move forward, because that way I can combo somebody. If I'm here and there's a guy here, I'm comboing him. I see another dude coming up. If I keep comboing this guy, I'm pushing him back, and I'm eventually probably going to hit that guy that's charging me as well.
Like it's very rare in Final Fight where you'll be doing a combo and that'll be going long enough that another character will walk into it. Like it's super rare. Yeah. Whereas in AVP, it seems like it was a conscious
I can push
design thing,
my way into them. Mm-hmm. So that is the big difference. That's why I absolutely love AVP. Like that is the one arcade. I know there's things, especially now with like Disney and Fox merger and all that stuff, that I don't think that game will ever be re-released ever.
Unless we live in the UK.
Yeah.
Where it did on like a ridiculous Capcom, somehow Cock or Koch or something media, Cock Media was able to do it. Somebody's got friends and nowhere else apparently.
I think we've talked about this at length one time before, where it's like, I hate that stick so much. I hate that stick for existing. I hate it for how expensive it is. And I hate it how it's the only thing where it's, yes, I know, I'm sure lots of people are screaming, just emulate it. That's not the point.
That's not the point.
I want to reward someone for giving me this game.
Exactly.
You know what?
It's been since AVP's a 1994 game as well, because Capcom was firing on like all cylinders that year. It has never released on anything, and some might say, "What about the SNES version?" Different game, bro. That's not the same. It's different. Different devs, completely different game.
That AVP game on the Super Nintendo was made it wasn't even made by Capcom. It was made another thing. I think the Japanese version, I might need to look this up. I think the Japanese version has a versus mode.
Yeah.
or something, or like when you go,
does it have big mode?
It's already big mode. It's big mode all the time. But
thank God.
It's either it has a versus mode, or when it has an added feature where you lock in against a certain xenomorph, it becomes like a fighting game, like energy bars appear or something like that. I have to look it up because I haven't actually played the Japanese version. But AVP Arcade, just when I saw press down up and then you do like an uppercut, I'm like, oh. How have we not thought of this before? Like Streets of Rage 2 had like press dash forward and press punch, and you get everyone's specialized special move that was, slightly different than what you were getting beat 'em ups at the time. But it made such a world of difference to have this like always a good move. Like it's always like you want to be doing this a lot. You don't have to, but it's there. So it's just like that started pushing the beat 'em up in like a different direction. We're like, hey, we can get a bit crazier with this, and like these little fighting game accoutrements being like put into the combat of beat 'em ups. Like I'm sad it's not something that continued more and more, or maybe it did, and that's why we got character action games. But
it's funny because it doesn't even extend only to beat 'em ups. Like I remember the first time playing Final Fantasy 3, aka Final Fantasy 6. And you get like Sabin, and he just straight has like fighting game moves like all over the place. You're like, wow, this is weird. I remember playing Tales of Destiny on a PS1, and it's the same shit where it's just like, just do quarter circle back, half circle forward, quarter circle back 360, and you'll do the ultimate. And you're like, what the hell? You just see all these directions and arrows and stuff, and it's like they're literally having us do fighting game moves in these things. And I think eventually, like, okay, maybe we tried a little bit too hard, with all these genres that are nowhere close to fighting games at all. So it kind of went away. But AVP is like, one of those first ones where you realize like, oh, I'm just doing uppercuts. I'm doing DPs. I'm doing these motions and stuff that is extremely similar to the relative games at the time.
Yeah. Well, not only that, they made it easy too. Like the fact that I want to do the dragon punch, basically. I'm going to press, forward, down, forward, my button. But in a game like that, where there is a Z axis, if I press down, then up, I am going exactly down one. Then I go up right where I was before. So I'm not really losing lining up with that person on the Z axis.
Yeah, especially because you can turn left and right. So if like you mess up that input at all,
no
directions.
Kicks. Yep.
That's a good thing to bring up, because in Final Fight 3, a lot of special moves, not all of them, but a lot of them were hold a button, then do a motion, and then a move will come out. Specifically, the super moves were all like that, where for like something like Hagar, you had to grab someone, then like do like you had to be in a different state rather than like be on the ground just walking around. Same thing with like Guy, you had to like grab someone, and then it was something like press your thumb forward and then roll down. Yeah. Like the reverse of like a fireball. And then Guy would do like this canned animation versus like Lucia in Final Fight 3. Hers was like press down, forward outside of holding anyone or combat. Yeah. She just did like a big flurry of moves. And these were mind blowing to me as a kid because they needed like meter to do. I don't know if there is a game, if there was a fighting game that had a meter-based super system. There's other games later on that had like some type of super move, but there are few and far between. But between then, you also had like Hagar's violent axe that he has in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, like came from Final Fight 3, where you just do a fireball motion and he just throws that out. Everyone had at least one move that was like that. And even though Final Fight 3 has problems where it's like it doesn't look as good as the older games and it has tons and tons of slowdown, it's way too easy. It's still like, if I have to go back to one, like I'd rather go back to just because there's so much more things you can do in that game.
Yeah,
I really prefer the Weapon Lord button moves that you have to do.
Yeah.
Directional.
Everyone prefers Weapon Lord.
This is you're talking about this like mid 90s where they're like, okay, we got all these fighting games, they got all these moves, like we got to innovate. So what was the innovate? Like around the mid 90s, it was like, okay, you hold down a button, you do a bunch of shit, you let go of the button, and then you do some more shit after. Like there's a bunch of this stuff
while in midair.
Well, yeah, while doing all these other requirements. Like I think we just recently played Eternal Champions. Like it's all over that game, and it's all over over like Weapon Lord. And I personally always hated it. Like it feels like you can do maybe one motion, maybe something really specific, hold down a button and let it go. I feel like even in classic like KI, they have it kind of with the after you combo break, you get a shadow move and you have to like press the button and then let it do the motion. Weird. They were always weird. Yeah. And they took it out of the SNES version because it couldn't do it graphically. But I don't know, man. It's like, it's one of those things I feel like you can do it limited, but it's like, it felt like they were just trying to do something different in the time frame because everything was very Street Fighter-y, you know, in terms of motion inputs, or very SNK-y.
Yeah.
And the thing that you mentioned, Matt, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
The whole thing about there was a health bar and then the power meter or the special meter, whatever you want to consider it. Like that was something I never got used to as a kid, is the fact that even as a kid, I knew that negated exactly the whole purpose of the game is I want to punch these enemies before they punch me so I don't lose health. But I'm going to use this move that just negates that whole scenario of me not losing health. I'm making myself lose health in hopes that maybe I can find some health pickups. And I think that was a weird thing that developers could not get out of the whole quarter munching kind of thing of like, developers made it to where, you lose health because we want your quarters. Yep. And everybody just translated that over to the home system. It's like, dude, I just spent in 1980s, 90s money, $60, $70 for this. Why are you still giving me lives? Why are you still making health drain? Like, what is the purpose of this?
It's funny. It's a reality like a lot of us don't want to accept about the SNES / arcade era of games, is that it was so pay to win. It was insane. Like there was pay to win mechanics put into everything, and they would design games where the first 2 levels were accessible and fun, and then they just made the game suck, like because they wanted you to rent it again and again and again.
I don't remember.
Double Dragon 3.
I was gonna say, Max. The arcade, Max, do you remember us talking about Double Dragon 3 and what that made you do?
I can't.
And then they had so many complaints. The Japanese version is like, we got to get rid of it. No, just get rid of it altogether.
Go over it again. Did we talk about it a long time ago?
It was in Double Dragon 3. It's a standard beat 'em up, except you go into a store and it's like you go into like an in-game like little shop, and there's a shopkeeper. Yeah. And it says put in more quarters for power-ups and weapons and extra guys.
Like literal real life money.
It's the first microtransaction. The first mini buy.
So like we're talking like mid 90s.
92, I want to say.
Oh Jesus! Wow, they made a lot. Okay.
91, maybe.
That's crazy.
But yeah, it's one of the reasons why Double Dragon has got like a bad reputation after that point. Like this was the American version that came out first. Give me more quarters, please. And the game was like tough, you know.
It's funny. I try to think of like other
Double Dragon didn't have Mega Crush moves that drained your health.
Yeah.
That was nothing. It never had. There was a Final Fight Capcom thing.
I try to think of like other genres that really tried to like push this barrier of how do we get more quarters out of people. And man, like the beat 'em up genre is one of the biggest ones in its inception. That was like, oh, we can drain these motherfuckers. like there's a lot of games that were like that.
Because if you put in enough quarters, you will beat the game. But like, can I beat the game designer?
Yeah.
Like, did they design this so hard that like I can't possibly have enough quarters?
And there's an answer. Don't get me wrong. There usually is answers in these old games. Like people can still, beat them on 1 credit and it's no problem. And maybe there's some force damage here and there. But would you be able to do that without like a game FAQ? Like would anybody, like any casual Joe Schmo or some kid that's playing through like the X-Men arcade game be able to get past some of this shit? Probably not.
No,
Now shitty little Bannon, like I don't even know, maybe like 10, 11-year-old Bannon. My brother and I there was a racquetball club my dad went to. And so he would go work out, whatever. And there was an arcade there. There was like 4 or 5 arcades just cycling through, and they had the Captain America and the Avengers one.
Yeah.
He and I figured out how to lift the lid of that, and then we got our tallest friend to hit flick the little beam, hit the like little switch there to give us infinite quarters. And so we put it back down.
I never want to hear arcade and flick the beam.
The little beam.
Again. So that game, I got so adept at playing, I believe it was Iron Man. He had a specific jumping move. So you had Hawkeye and Captain America. When you jumped and attacked, they would shoot a projectile. Then they would fall back down. Vision and Iron Man, if you jumped, you would float and shoot a projectile. You could, before you land, I believe you could do that again and again and again. So I got so adept because of how much flicking of the bean I did in that arcade that I could literally beat that game on 1 quarter.
And it's like you went to all that cheating for the Avengers arcade beat 'em up game. Yes. Like that's an amazing choice. But when you're saying like, fighting games or beat 'em ups like draining quarters, that's why when like other beat 'em ups became console exclusives, like Final Fight 2 and 3 weren't arcade games, but they're completely doable. Like Final Fight 2 is not that hard. And of course there's difficulty settings. Final Fight 3 is like a cakewalk, and you can even get a computer controlled partner there. It's a dumb partner. It always dies halfway through the game, and it doesn't even feel like it's completed yet. But as beat 'em ups went on and like they went out of favor in arcades just because now fighting games are the new thing. Now music games are the new thing. Now, or whatever replaced it. It's like, how do we design an interesting game now that we can't drain quarters if we're making this for consoles? Yeah. Like in Final Fight 2 or 3 or Streets of Rage 3. And Streets of Rage 3, it's like, okay, well, there's choices to make. There's a branching storyline. Or we have the interesting system of let this power bar build up, and if it gets all the way up, then your special move doesn't cost you health, which was always like an interesting way to do it. So they're trying to branch out and do these sorts of things, but it's like, that's why maybe there's less and less Capcom beat 'em ups even getting ported to home consoles. Like there was no Battle Circuit. There was no Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. Like there was a bad port of the Punisher. And that's why AVP never came out. Like that's graphically intensive, of course. I'm not sure if you could have done that justice on the Super Nintendo or Genesis, but like it's around like there, like 94, 95, 96, where it's like, we're not sure if we can make this genre anymore.
Yeah, where it feels like it's locked to arcades. Yeah.
And that's why it's like, well, let's get Guy and Cody to do some other stuff. We like these characters. We think they have potential. Let's put them in alpha. Let's get Guile's chain combos that are his exact sprite from when Bannon did it. Like that's what Guy looks like when he does his punch. Let's put that in there. Let's put Cody's glitch of punch looping someone to death as a super and Alpha 3. That's how much we're ingrained. We're going to like have these two genres mixed together. Will anyone get that? When I was younger,
I had no idea what that was.
Neither did I.
I had no idea what was happening.
Max, any idea when you first saw Final Destruction in Alpha 3? It's like, why does it look like that?
Yeah, I once again, like it was like Final Fight was a game that I don't even remember being in the arcades very much less like anything of its sequels on SNES or stuff like that. So when Cody came out in these games, I was like, what, wait a minute, is this the guy? Like,
it's
is
very different design too.
Yeah, because it's way different.
Guy.
Yeah.
Why has he got handcuffs?
Yeah.
Maximilian, Justin is not here this week, so unfortunately we can't talk about balls a whole bunch.
Damn it.
But with our sponsor for today's episode, Manscaped, we could talk about something slightly different. It is still the scaping of man, but is with their new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Anything you can tell us about this as a purveyor of beards yourself?
Yes, and as somebody that, is actively waiting to hopefully get one of these into my hands, I find myself constantly going through a cycle of beard trimming equipment. I think I might have like 4 different ones at some point for anybody that has facial hair. Yeah, and it'd be kind of nice if we could sort of like centralize and localize these things. And it certainly seems like the Beard Hedger Pro Kit is going to be that. I need it. Look at this facial hair. We're still waiting to get ours in the mail, man. So yes, the Beard Hedger is the juggernaut of fixing faces, and it's a cordless trimmer with a rotary wheel that comes with 20 different hair cutting lengths, and I appreciate that as
so many
different coarseness to our facial hair. So there's no more messy drawers with all these add-ons, and face grooming doesn't need to be hard. Just 20 different beard lengths in just one guard, which seems very nice. The titanium coated T-blade. One of the things I hate, Matt, is you get these beard hedging things, and like these other ones ones that I've used just pull the hairs off your face. And I'm like, buddy, like, can we not do this?
Yeah, so yes. It doesn't need to be so violent. The action needs to be more taming. You need to tame the mane, as we are known to say.
As long as it's up here, then we're okay. Yes, yeah. Exactly. But yes, according to the Beard Hedger Pro Kit, it's tough on hair but smooth on your face, leading to a single stroke and efficiency that brings satisfaction, like one stroke at a time, so not to go over like you're a lawnmower or something like that. And also, one thing I do appreciate is the beard shampoo and conditioner. So you remember, all of your hair is different. The hair on your face is different than the hair on your head. It's coarser and easier to damage than what's going on up here. And that's why this kit has made shampoo and conditioning especially easier to moisturize and sanitize what's going on in your face. You can reduce ingrown hairs and replace natural oils and promote beard health. And I think Manscaped has an answer to guys like us that get facial hair that grows out like crazy and it in speeds that has variety. I very much appreciate this, and I can't wait to get a hold of it myself. So for anybody else that wants to get a hold of the Beard Hedger from Manscaped, you can get 20% off and free shipping with the code TKO at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using the code TKO. And the Beard Hedger, one stroke, one guard, 20 lengths. Can I get one already, man? Come on.
That's so much length. Well, I think like, cause 89, right? Like that's Final Fight's like super big thing. And I didn't even get into arcades until like, Street Fighter 2 came out. So like, I kind of missed it, but I did see it once or twice because it was like Capcom's second biggest arcade, like after various versions of Street Fighter 2. So it was popular, but like, in the late 80s. But them making those moves, Capcom going, okay, well, let's give these characters another lease on life. Like they at least did that versus I did a video about Fighting Force recently and how they approached Core Design approached Sega of America and said, well, let's turn this into a new Streets of Rage. And a lot of people have said this. Haven't seen this direct quote, but people that were running Capcom USA at the time, I think they went through a switch or something, new guys took over. They said, what is Streets of Rage? I don't understand what that is. So we're not doing whatever you're asking. I don't know. I don't know.
Weird.
Like because we've talked about this before, Max. If someone is not there to champion a franchise, to say I want to take ownership of that, I want to do stuff with that, it's done. And like that's why Streets of Rage didn't continue until like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
There's no one to fight for it, or there was not enough interest or whatever it is.
It felt like at Capcom, like the roots of like beat 'em up games were always in the core of like the games going forward, right? So there was these developers that were definitely shared, like the arcade groups that were making these at Capcom that were making CPS like 1 to 2 to 3 games, all shared like a similar camaraderie. So you'd get these references all the way, to like Alpha 3, which is like a 1999 game or some shit like that, right? Funny enough, it's a thing that came up over the past, like, I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast. It came up over the past month where it was revealed that CVS 2 was going to have a beat 'em up character in it. And Maki is who they eventually made it. So it's like, oh, we got that beat 'em up character. It wasn't Maki.
But it wasn't supposed to be her. It was supposed to be
Lin Kurosawa.
Lin Kurosawa.
Yes. Originally, that sprite was supposed to be Lin Kurosawa, and all they did was just change the sprite a bit so that it could be Maki and give her some attacks that changed a bit. But yeah, like that was originally a thing. That interview came out from like the early 2000s that, oh my God, we almost got Lin Kurosawa in a fighting game.
They do have a similar like idol stance and a similar hairstyle as well. It's like a big fluffy ponytail coming out the back.
I do use Maki as kind of a sprite reference. She is one of the best sprite characters ever.
Yeah.
In CVS, like when you look at her in Final Fight 1, it's kind of like she's got less identity, but they're like, let's give her guy shoes. Oh, everyone just starts freaking
give her high
out.
Tops. Yeah, we're done.
Just give her high tops and tonfas. She didn't have tonfas in Final Fight 2. It's like stuff that they did to make her more unique, I guess. And her moveset is like 1,000 times more interesting in CVS than it was in Final Fight. The only thing that she retained for Final Fight 2 is her dumb like flippy kick.
The spin kick,
that what does it do to Maki?
Don't tell me that takes away life from her in CVS 2. Yes, it does. It does it in CVS 2? Oh my God.
Okay. I'm almost positive.
It's awful too. It's bad.
Please.
I'm disgusted.
Like if you watch people that are actually good at Maki, one of the 5 that are actually good with Maki and CVS2, they never use that attack. It's just like useless shit.
I'm looking up Maki health drain CVS2.
But I think the Tonfas might have been like a sprite flip of like the gun animations and other weapons that Lin Kurosawa could have been using. And they're just like, oh, we could just give her Tonfas. That makes sense. Like, as I didn't even know where she came from. And somebody eventually was like, oh no, she was a Final Fight character. I'm like, what? Like, because Final Fight, that was 3 that she was in. I can't even remember.
Two.
Yeah. Okay.
Really?
Lucia was the one that was in 3. That's where she came from.
Yes, yeah. That's exactly. When you first saw Lucia announced, were you like, I have no idea who this is?
Like, what? Like, I just had no idea.
I'm a huge Lucia fan, and I didn't know at first. I was like, no, what I thought is this can't be that Lucia.
Yeah.
There's no way Capcom went into Final Fight 3 and said like, oh yeah, let's grab. At least they grabbed her. It's actually interesting. Oh, let's make her like a New York accent cop. Like that's cool. Versus Dean, who I'm not even, Max, if you remember this, it was like the most generic guy ever, with like blonde, spiky hair and a black headband, and he just electrified people.
He had the tank top, right?
Or the white tank top, right?
Yeah. Or the A shirt.
Yeah. And originally, Capcom, there was like a beta, or like not beta, it's probably a little bit before that. Someone was able to find like old Final Fight 2 reference art, and they had actually made him a cyborg at the start. He had a metal arm, and like he still had spiky hair, but like half his face, like he looked like a Terminator, right? And then they're like, no, let's not do that. That's too cool.
That's too cool.
Let's just make him into Dean instead.
You mentioned cyborgs and Terminators, and it also makes me realize where the Final Fight series, eventually ended, which was the future.
I thought you were going to say with the war with Skynet.
Well, I mean,
you guys remember that?
It ended in 2010 when Ken Masters got a hold of the bioplasm or whatever the hell it is, and he entered.
I didn't even put this down in the docket, but Max is bringing it up anyway.
The Final Fight, the true actual. We're supposed to take Street Fighter and Final Fight and make them one game, and Ken's going to get his bioplasm and he's going to go fight Ryu at the end. I swear. That's no one knows that. Barely anybody's actually beaten it, and I have. So I'm just going to say Ryu's the last boss.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Why did you beat it? Like, I remember seeing you just upload, like, I played Street Fighter 20.
Yeah.
Like, was it a legacy?
Yes.
Or
that was a Ken legacy.
The Ken
when he was
legacy
coming out
for
in Smash.
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
So we had to play Street Fighter 2010, the Final Fight. But I already had a deep personal interconnection with that game because I had it as a kid. I went to a Kmart and looked inside the glass case, and there was a Street Fighter game for Nintendo. I was like, holy shit, it looks crazy. This must be the sequel. They got me, those mother pieces of shit.
I was at the grocery store. The grocery store used to have video rentals and game rentals, and that was front facing. And I saw that. I was like, what happened to Ken?
Yeah, what happened to Ken?
And it's a really sick cover too. In bad like Capcom NES box art history, it's like a super sick cover.
And in the games,
there's a gargoyle behind him.
Yeah, he's like fighting he's like fighting one of the bosses. It's like some gargoyle robot.
He's fighting Target.
In the game's defense, it's actually a good game. Like, it's weird. It's got crazy mobility. The controls are kind of wonky, but kind of like ahead of its time for when it came out on NES.
The time limit is the thing about it.
Yeah,
right?
it's got some pain in the ass mechanics to it, and it's aggressive. It's horribly difficult, right? And most Capcom games were kind of accessible back then. They were just fun, right? So this one was like in the levels of Jesus Christ, what are you making people do? But it's weirdly good. It's just the fact that it's got like Final Fight and Street Fighter in 2010 mixed in, and it's none of that shit. Future. It's just like Capcom marketing spin to try to literally get kids like me to buy it.
We need to find some Capcom USA guy that was working there between 1991 and 1995, and we need to just have him on the show and just pick his brain. I'm like, why are you so crazy?
It's got to be James Goddard. We got to get James Goddard on the podcast.
He was there, and he was there during that time frame, but he wasn't a marketing guy.
Yeah, but I
think he did do translation. I think he did do localization, didn't he?
The guy made DJ, so he's around that company at the time with the appropriate people. We have to know, like, is there an answer of why this eventually happened?
Oh yeah, we definitely have to. It's crazy that you're even mentioning that game. Like, I know it's like, pretty close to what we're talking about with Final Fight and Street Fighter, but I was editing a video myself, and I was like today, and I was just like, I need to put in a clip of AVGN talking. There's this game that I remember he talks about, because I'm trying to fight a final boss in a fighting game that was recently released, and I can't defeat him. And I say the thing where I'm probably going to do really well against this boss in the first match or two, but then everything I do will get worse and worse. I will not learn the boss at all.
That's a natural process.
And I just go back to him trying to defeat the last AVGN, trying to defeat the last three bosses in Street Fighter 2010, The Final Fight. Put the respect on the name, where he goes, you start playing these bosses so much that all of your skill starts to weaken, and you get worse and worse because you're so damn frustrated.
Yes.
And it was because of the time limit, because you have to be perfect.
Yes.
If you mess around, you still beat the bosses, but if you mess around too long, that time limit just kills you. Is there even a story justification as to why there's a strict time limit? Like, is there a bomb? Is it no?
He's holding his breath. He's in space. Okay.
Against running around.
What do you think that is, where you do good at the start of a game? Like, not even at the start of a game, but a new boss, whatever. Like, oh, you got him down to like 80%. This happened to me in Elden Ring several times. But then the consecutive times I try after that, just fucking terrible. And I'm just dying.
Skill degradation.
Yeah, what is that though? Is that almost like you are the button masher? Like, if you are a skilled Street Fighter player and you go up against somebody that's button mashing, they're doing stuff that you don't even expect. Is it like the weird opposite? Like, the boss is like, oh, you weren't supposed to be
so
here.
It's definitely like a proper phenomena, right? Like, it's a thing that I can absolutely say is the case when you're trying to learn a fighting game, and you'll get messed up by people that aren't thinking, and it's almost impossible to like, oh my god, what the hell do I even do? In the same way when you're fighting like a boss fight, right? And AI just acts in a specific way, right? Especially old AI, it's just going to allow itself to be hit sometimes, and then not allow itself to be hit most of the time. So you have to take advantage of those moments. The problem is, when you're jumping into this stuff, you have no preconceived notion in round one, or round, like the first couple of rounds. So you're just trying shit, and just trying shit works out, but you're not identifying like the shit that you're just trying is like actual effort that I need as a strategy that I should come up with. Developing the strategy is when you fuck yourself up, because you have to figure out what actually works instead of you just being random. Right? Because you're just being random, right? And that's the normal pattern of figuring out a boss fight, especially in these old pattern recognition boss fights. And you do pretty good. You're like, dang, okay, I got pretty far. And then you're going to do bad for like an hour, because you're trying to figure out, you're actually putting in the thought into figuring out what's going on. And this computer isn't thinking about shit. It's not thinking about shit. It's not a person. In the same way, like in a fighting game, you're doing well against other people that are around your skill level, because you're using, a couple of brain cells. And then you just get dudes that are mashing their face against the controller, it feels like, and you're just like, I can't get a read on this guy. I don't know what the heck's going on. Like,
he's in my head.
It's better.
It's like in real life when you fight. Yeah, it's like in real life when you fight a child.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, whenever I fight children, it pretty much is the exact same thing for me too.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, I didn't know he was going to roll. I didn't know he was going to roll on the ground and fight.
You're thinking of strategy, but the kid is not like, no thoughts, just fight.
Yeah.
Right? And it's the same thing. I remember when KI 2013 came out, and like, I don't know, a month or two after launch, and I'm like, I'm getting really confident at it. I'm like, oh yeah. Oh, this is so good. Everything's clicking. Oh, awesome. I'm the best. And then I would fight my brother-in-law came over, and he's like, oh, that's a new KI game. Let me play. Or my wife is like, oh yeah, I'll fight you. I'm drunk. Why not? And I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm all like, and I'm getting destroyed because I'm overthinking. Yep. I'm like, I'll just, do the things. I'll do the things that I've learned. That doesn't work. You can't defeat someone with no strategy.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
And this is,
I do wonder if it has something to do with the fact that first run through, you were kind of like, oh yeah, I'll run in, but he's doing something big and scary. So I only hit him twice and backed up. But that was kind of like the thing you were supposed to do. Yeah. But the better you get, you're like, oh, I'm going to get like 5 hits in before he does that big move.
You start developing strategy.
But then you start realizing, yeah, you can't get away from that big move. And the boss is like, oh no, the thing you did at the start where you just hit me twice and ran off, that's what you're supposed to do. Now you're getting cocky.
Yeah, your essential identifying of like patterns and stuff like that, building strategy in your head, it builds up this very popular fighting game term called the mental stack, where you have all these things you're looking out for. So then the most obvious thing happens and you're not ready for it. They jump, right? It's the same exact shit against Elden Ring and Souls bosses too, where it's just like, I've dodged this thing a billion times and now you dodged all the hard stuff. Whack. And now the normal thing just beats the shit. You're like, God damn it, man.
Because you're over like the mental hump of like, oh, I finally dodged that super hard to dodge thing, and then something small
you've
comes
been good
out
at all the hard shit,
you.
and now the easy shit messes you up. It's like, yeah, how do you beat that? It just takes time. You just have to like eat shit for a long time. You remind me of this one thing of fighting children for some reason. I couldn't help it. It almost made me.
Oh yeah, let's just return back to fighting children.
We were playing recent Punch Out on Wii, like an absolute classic, right? Also has like a versus mode. And we were thinking in our room when we were playing it, we were like, what would you do if you had to fight Mike Tyson for one? Like, how would you survive if you had to fight the actual Iron Mike Tyson in the ring in his prime for like 5 minutes? Like, how would you survive? And I think Kenny was like, I just Dark Souls roll around, like full invulnerability. And like, somebody's like, dude, that's not going to work. He's going to punch you when you're on the ground.
He
like
punch your spine.
Legs. You're going to rip your spine up. Rolling
when you guys
work.
said fight, do you mean like it's in a boxing ring with rules, or you're like just in a cage and like anything goes?
No, it's like,
you just have your bare hands.
You're in Punch Out.
Are we talking about children?
Oh, you're in Punch Out.
Children still, or
yeah, no, like,
are we talking about kids?
You have
or
the mobility of a child. How about that?
Kids can roll. Kids are fast.
Kids have like that elongated roll, like the one that goes really far.
Are you teaching Ripley to roll?
Yes, that's the best defense. Essentially, Dark Souls roll through everything.
So I wanted to go back around to Double Dragon in that. So let's hire someone that's never made a fighting game. In this case, the Leland Corporation. We're going to have Leland Corporation make a fighting game out of the Double Dragon cartoon that was not very successful, and they've never made a fighting game before. We're going to have them do that. And speaking of marketing people, we're going to have the gall to call this Double Dragon 5. That's like calling Mortal Kombat Special Forces Mortal Kombat 6.
Yeah.
You know, like, to this day, I'm just like, who thought that this is a good idea? This won't confuse children.
It reeks some Street Fighter 2010, the Final Fight shit.
It does, but it's the same guy.
They're just trying to. It is the same guy. They're just trying to get you. They're trying to get you, right?
But I mean, is that for the audience that doesn't know, like, if that is their first time seeing Double Dragon 5, they know there's 4 other ones out there. If it was just called Double Dragon, Redemption or whatever it is, it's like, oh, that's just the name of this title. I don't know that there's 4 of them before this.
But the age-old marketing thing,
it's still trash and garbage, yes.
Yeah, but the age-old marketing thing is that we can't do that because someone's not going to buy something that's on the 4th entry if they didn't play the previous 3. And even then, like, the Double Dragon 4 wasn't even called Double Dragon 4. It was just called Super Double Dragon, or was it called Super Double Dragon 4?
Super Double Dragon.
And you know what? I can almost tell.
Call 4.
I had to look it up to see like what the hell Double Dragon 5 even looks like, and I can tell you immediately.
Come on, you must have rented this once.
No, I mean, I think we have played it at some point.
Yeah,
but I can tell you immediately why they did the title, because V is like a very sellable Roman numeral, right? Like the X is very sellable, the V, the 1, the 2, the 3s. 4's not so much. That doesn't have that striking image. Yeah. And I was like, I wonder what Double Dragon 5's logo looks like. And yep, it's a dragon with a V. And it's like, yeah, we can sell people on this shit.
Also, Street Fighter 5's V is very distinctive, and Samurai Showdown 5's is like a really cool V logo as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if you're right. They're like, oh, look how good the logo looks. Look how awesome this Julie Bell painted artwork is, but let's crop the shit out of it and put a big yellow background that like obscures her amazing paintings.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. It's like 2/3 like yellow, like back screen, and then 1/3 really cool artwork that I can barely see. Is that actually the cover?
Yeah, no, it is.
Well, so Max, I'm looking at the actual V itself. It's not even symmetrical.
It's not. It's at a weird angle. It's all
got
warped.
the serif.
Whoever is the marketing guy that decided let's crop the shit out of that, or gave Julie Bell bad direction and said, oh, it's going to be in this format, but then, oh, wait, that's not what we wanted for, because we have to do the Super Nintendo box art, the Genesis box art, and most unfortunately, the Jaguar box art. So I hope that guy steps on a Lego like right now, like a big Lego, because I recently went down the rabbit hole of Julie Bell, well known for doing a lot of comic book trading card art, lots of fantasy artwork, and just did a crap ton of video game box art stuff. Did a Golden Axe, another beat 'em up. Did the Golden Axe box art. It's like, I'm really good at drawing naked men and women that are barely like clothed. Here's a loincloth. And you got them to do a new Double Dragon box art. First time having something looking that good, and it's all cropped as shit.
Heavy metal shit.
And it's a bad fighting game.
I could not remember most of Double Dragon for the Shadow Falls, but there is a actual skeleton character in this. There
is, and I'm happy you brought this up because it's skeleton lore, right? So the cartoon that it's based on has no skeleton. No, his name is just simply Bones.
Good.
That is so honest and so like pure.
He's true to himself.
The bad guy, the shadow boss, resurrected a skeleton that's wearing big purple shorts and has a machine gun. And this was
sunglasses.
This was created just for this game. Bones. Also, somehow he tattooed the image of a cobra onto his own skull. So that's my character of the day. But yeah, I went back and I played it recently. It's not good. There's certainly some things to say about, like, it's got decent music, it's got colorful backgrounds, that type of thing. It has one of the weirdest fatality systems I've ever seen. Max, every character has an associated strength of button, like normal.
Right.
So let's say Billy Lee has crouching medium punch. If you finish off Billy Lee with a crouching medium punch, he has a specific death animation for himself. They're called overkills.
So it's 90s era brutalities. Okay.
Yeah, I'd say so. And it was that character. You have to do the button that's associated with them. It's not with you.
Right.
If you're playing as Bones, it might say in an FAQ, Bones, overkill, hard kick. You don't press that. You have to press who you're fighting against.
Yeah.
And that's you don't even get points for it. It doesn't say overkill. They just have a funny animation. There's a character named Jawbreaker. Guess what? He has a big a mouthful of teeth, and all of his teeth fall out. They're not even violent.
That's good.
So some people's weakness is just a punch in the tummy?
Yes. In the belly,
Gotcha.
right in the belly willy. They'll just die from an overkill. Strangely, the Jaguar version, which was released the next year, has less characters than the Genesis or the Super Nintendo version. They took a bunch of characters out, made one of the sub bosses, which is a literal dominatrix, and just put her in the main roster and took out a bunch of the main characters. I've never
Dominique.
It's because we can't get Linda in there.
Wow, it just came. Mm-hmm. Great name.
We can't get Linda from Double Dragon in there, who has a literal whip. So let's make another whip character and just put them in. Like, I don't understand.
I'm looking at
for whatever
stages, and I just see the Mortal Kombat logo in the back of some stages in this game. Like,
this is the Double Dragon cartoon logo. So it's
okay.
You have to embrace both sides of the dragon, which is you're the shitty blonde Ken guy,
right? Or
you're the stoic Ryu guy.
Yeah.
So you have to both sides of the dragon. You see every stanza rhymes.
Yeah. Okay.
God, these stances are just drive me fucking nuts. What
do you mean?
Just the fact that he's doing like this horse stance, the thing that you would want to put in front of you to kill somebody. He's holding behind himself.
Yeah. You're being because the code of the dragon in this cartoon is don't hurt no one. Don't hurt nobody, no time. It's literally that. It says, like, the code of the dragon says you must never intentionally harm another.
Cool. I'll bring a sword.
cool. I'll bring a sword. That looks super
I'll bop
whack.
him with the hilt.
Billy Lee's projectile is he opens up his shirt and there's a tattoo and he shoots a dragon head out of his nipples.
As you do.
As you do.
As one does, as is tradition.
Max has a KI logo there.
As I do.
So Technos were so angry at this game. There's another example of this. I think when they made the 1998 American Godzilla movie, Toho got so angry. They're like, we gotta make an apology movie. So Technos made an apology game. They made the Neo Geo Double Dragon fighting game. That's actually quite good. There's actual mechanics there. Like it's goofy and it's a bit janky, but it's fun. It looks like a Neo Geo game, has the sprite scaling and everything. For a long time, I just assumed like SNK made this, and I looked up like, no, Technos just made a decent fighting game for the first time out. And I'm always amazed by that. It has really good character intros for stages. Like a character busts through a wall of like the sprite has a specialized animation just for that. And the stage is now changed just for the intro. They break things when they all walk in. Someone jumps in from an airplane. It's pretty sick stuff, actually. It reminds me of like the little intros from like King of Fighters or Garo.
Was it
everyone had a
published by SNK? Because every time I see some Double Dragon stuff, I do see an SNK logo here and there.
I think it must have been because.
And was this another one of those games with complicated controls?
No.
I swear that, I swear, I don't think I ever touched this game maybe one time in the arcade.
This is weirdly based semi off the Double Dragon movie. They have clips from the movie that play in the intro.
That's where Abobo turns into movie Abobo for like a second,
yes,
right?
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
It's really gross.
Single tier.
It's very Street Fighter, the movie, where it's like, let's just have an intro with like footage of the movie, just like playing the start, or video walls in the background, play clips from the movie. And none of the character designs match up with anything from the movie at all. But this is Double Dragon's second fighting game. And then, of course, a couple of years later, Evoga, I believe, or Eolith, I forget the company names, but I believe they're based in either Mexico or Spain. I can't really remember. They were making another fighting game, and they're like, let's make this. Let's get the Double Dragon license. Okay, we're halfway done the game. Oh, wait, we can't get the Double Dragon license. Hence Rage of the Dragons and Billy and Jimmy Lewis.
Lewis.
Oh.
Yeah. Max, I think Justin was talking to you about this a bunch of episodes ago. He's like, this is like the sickest fighting game, Rage of the Dragons. And thankfully it is getting re-released, I believe, later on this year in like a little collection package. I'm not really sure the details.
Yeah, I've seen this here and there. It looks like ridiculously SNK-y, right? Like super like high quality animations. Like this probably was the early 2000s.
Yeah, like I want to say it was like 2000 or something, or maybe like 1999 at the very least. This was not made by SNK.
No,
but they had to, like a Bobo is like a boo boo, stuff like that. They're just gonna legally say it, and it sucks because this would have been like the best Double Dragon fighting game. I mean, Rage of the Dragons. I would love it if it could just be called Double Dragon Rage of the Dragons, or some combination thereof.
An unlicensed Double Dragon fighting game. Yeah, it looks like Gauro almost. It's true.
It does. Some of the character designs even remind me a lot of Gauro character designs. So it's just crazy to me that a beat 'em up franchise had two officially, three technically fighting games just based on that alone. And I kind of liken it to like maybe the versus mode in Double Dragon 1. They're kind of like, hey, people seem to like that, I guess. I'm not sure the metrics on that. Like, how are they able? But the fact that they got three of them is just crazy to me. Like Final Fight, we're not going to talk about it too much because we've talked about previous episodes. Final Fight got its fighting game. And that's still a treasured TripleKO topic. It's along there with KI, right?
This beautiful game never got a fair shot. And I feel like it is one of those classic Capcom games that should absolutely have been re-released in some way. It needs to be. People need to understand how amazing this shit is. This is some magical shit.
And this this represents the culmination of combining the fighting game with the beat 'em up. Let's put a bunch of stupid shit in the stages that you can pick up.
Yeah.
That's
like no longer are we going to have like, you know, our fighting game just script like experience with beat 'em up characters, and they just get some isms of the beat 'em up, and then you have your beat 'em ups with some fighting game isms. Like, no, this was like full tilt. Like you jump in a helicopter and gun bitches down. Like it is wild.
Jump into a cop car.
This whole time I've been trying to find old artwork that we had commissioned for my first River City game. You were talking about old like Super Nintendo cover art. So we got a guy named Greg Winters.
Greg Winters is kind of like a bit of a legendary artist, is he not?
Yes. And I'm trying to find an old email from maybe 8 years ago to show you the underground cover that we never released because it was so bad.
You've shown me this in the past, but I have a vague memory of what it looked like. And I'm like, what? What you described that's what the final product was. You got what you asked for, which was early 90s box art but it's like even more authentic than the purposely bad Mega Man 9 and 10 artworks.
And I need Max to see this.
Yeah, no.
If it's the
is this something we can visually show on the podcast? Is it?
Oh,
is it all right?
please.
Okay,
I would prefer you do.
Yeah, I need to see this because this is the artwork that I loved. Was this the same artist that did like Mega Man 3 and Mega Man 4 and stuff like that?
Yes,
wow.
I think the Empire Strike Back cover for the SNES, and then also the RoboCop 3.
Ooh, that's a good one. Even RoboCop 3, the movie and the game suck. It's a sick cover.
Yeah.
So yeah, while you're finding that,
it's funny because I actually have a giant like poster printout of Mega Man 3 with like, you know, all the Capcom shit around it. I love that shot. It's so sick.
So Final Fight Revenge, Max, I'm assuming just because it runs on a Sega arcade board, like the equivalent of a Sega Saturn, that no one wants to bother.
And I don't even know if there's many other games that actually utilize that arcade hardware, because it was an arcade game that only came out, from what I understand, in Japan. If it came out in the US, it's probably a Galloping Ghost or some shit. And he has the one, but I don't think it is. And nobody played it in arcades. It was made by I think it was made by a bunch of Canadians, from what I remember.
Gross. It was made by like a Capcom US. It was made by Capcom Production Studio 8, who made Maximo.
Gotcha.
And that was like their first game. I've long since tried to contact anyone that worked on Final Fight Revenge. Be like, just tell me anything.
Yeah.
Just tell me anything. I don't care.
Because it's weird. It's like right in that time frame where they were essentially outsourcing for like the Street Fighter EX games. You know, it was really close to all that, where they were teetering into the 3D-ness of what like the genre was eventually going to move to, which was way more popular. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like, I just wish that there was some more on this game, because the only way you can actually play it is through Saturn emulation for the most part. Yeah. And if you get a physical,
or you get my hard physical copy.
Yeah, and that AVGN has for like 7 years or something like that.
He's had it locked up in a room, and that's it. Like, it's just laying there in the dark.
The game's genuinely fun though. It's weird. It's not great. It's goofy. It's got a lot of like experimental shit in it, but it is
ahead
truly
of its time.
I'd say it's like meme worthy. I feel like it's one of those fighting games that you should play because it's fucking hilarious. Like, so
Justin's not here to defend himself, so that's just perfect. In his video that I would say about a year ago, he played it on his channel, and he starts it up and he's like, "Man, bro, this is trash." And he keeps playing it. And he's like, "Damn, bro." And then at the end of the video, he's like, "Yo, this game is sick."
Yes.
It's the best.
Yeah. You press some buttons and trash is the first word that comes to mind. And then you see some shit happen. You're like, oh, no, this is nuts.
Bannon, do you know about a specific super in this game that Hagar does?
No.
Okay. You do like regular motions. A not gambling, but like a spinning wheel appears. Like, you know, when like a game show, you spin the wheel, whatever it lands on. So Hagar's whatever he
like
gets.
God hand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it spins around and it could be like a regular slam or it could be like a triple power bomb and you have no control. It goes so, oops, I hit my back. It goes so fast. It doesn't matter what you press. It'll stop on whatever it damn well pleases. And that is the forward thinking, innovative ideas that the luminaries at Capcom USA were like, this is good. There's also the pile driving someone through the world Supermax,
Yes.
which whenever I talk to people about Final Fight Revenge, I just send them that clip of you guys playing it. If you recall, that is a counter super that only activates if someone does a jumping kick
Yes.
to Hagar.
It's really specific.
It doesn't activate under any other circumstances. There it is.
And just to set
There
up,
it is. I finally found it.
Oh my God. Wow.
So
He had not done art in years. Like he hadn't done stuff like this in years. This was maybe the 20th iteration of, yeah.
That's so
So-
sick.
There it is.
yeah, the style's still there.
There's elements to enjoy here, but the one I can't get around this.
Is it on the left side?
It is on the left side. It is this burger and it is this character. Provy looks great, right? Kunio and Ricky look great, but
You and I are thinking about a very, very different thing on the left side.
Oh, there's something else on the left side?
Here,
Sorry, the
I'm
building?
going to do a...
You're going to do a zoom in?
this for you. I'm going to do this for you.
Please do.
Just for you.
Because
I'm talking about a thing that I did not notice until we finalize this. A man choking a woman outside of a window.
I was about to say, what's happening in that window?
It's beat 'em ups are harsh, violent worlds. I don't.
It's none of my business.
This bitch down here lives in a sewer, like, and he's pissed that everyone's making noise.
To be fair, that's a weird thing, Max. I'm not sure if we talked about this. Maybe Bannon knows, but that is a long-standing, like, inner joke meme between the two artists that were making Final Fight box arts and Streets of Rage box arts. Sewer guy.
Yeah.
It's a thing. It's messed up.
It's messed up.
I don't know what its deal was. I think it was literally like an artist going, I don't know why he put a weird monster in the sewers. I'm going to draw one too. I don't know its genesis, but it's super cool. I wish more fighting games like had like dumb inner. Well, I guess there is. This
stuff, era like, of these like
Dan.
Super fantastical looking characters with these like hyper realistic and rendered faces. It's the same thing for the old Mega Man artwork when you look at it. It's like these rosy cheeks and stuff like that. Yeah. It's like so nostalgic.
To me, also, these are actual friends of mine.
Are they really?
The very reason I was making River City Ransom, like any type of game, at first it was just going to be a fan game. It was going to be maybe like, I don't know, something that you would play for like 10 minutes and it was just all starring my friends. Mm-hmm. That's how I learned how to animate. Was like, I will take the Street Fighter 3 animations. Like I could open those up in, I think, Image Ready at the time, and it would open up every frame. Yeah. So I would take the Chun-Li doing a move and I would put it in the Photoshop Image Ready or whatever. And I could see the animation, but then I use the little River City Ransom sprites as the actual base of that and then apply that animation to it. So all these characters are like, that's my brother at the top.
Yeah.
That's my buddy Mike. That's
because they have real faces. You can tell.
Yep.
Yeah. So why didn't you use this? I don't get it.
Coward.
Coward.
So we ended up getting a American version and then a Japanese version. And this was the special, like, all right.
Yeah.
I paid a lot of money for this kind of version.
Yeah.
It's like that one Tales of game that Namco made where one was like super realistic CGI characters and one was anime characters, and they marketed them as like two different things. Like, which one do you want? And the cutscenes, like the actual like produced like animated cutscenes were like different too to cater to both styles.
The equivalent of the Xbox Bloody Roar intro. Where it's just like not anime anymore. We're going to do CG, but it's the exact same thing.
It's the exact same shots, like beat for beat. They were just like, but Americans don't like anime. 2003, nobody liked Dragon Ball. So let's just make ugly CGI characters. Oh, they weren't ugly. They're fine. They're like a step down from like Tekken, like CGI or whatever. But
so yes, please share this with your audience.
We'll do. Tony, please make sure. So I did want to touch on one thing before you talk a bit more about River City Girls and like Bannon, where you're coming from in terms of like putting fighting game stuff into that is Max, because we haven't talked about KI enough yet. Not quite.
Shit.
Implementing Rash into KI and the beat 'em up things that he does. For people that don't remember or never played, what did Iron Galaxy do there?
Well, I mean, he's got everything, right? Like punch, big punch. He's for some reason the knot turtles would turn into like giant wrecking balls and stuff like that in the old games. So that's there. Like everything's essentially a reference, and then you also have, because once again, Battletoads had so much weird ass variety. You get the crazy ass bike sequence where you're wildly out of control and will explode on impact, and that's his instinct mode. So yeah, like every single thing is directly inspired. And in fact, the one thing that even I wanted to do was in his trailer, I'm like, I want to splash cut opening of the trailer to like pixel art NES Battletoads, and yes, to get that footage I just emulated Battletoads and I just got the sprites, and I'm like, this is the trailer now, and he gets sucked out of this world into Killer Instinct. Like, yeah, it was ingrained at its absolute root that all this stuff you remember about getting messed up from this guy and having messing up with this guy is gonna feel that way in Killer Instinct.
So when you pause the game to look at your fighting moves and controls, does it make the Battletoads
I don't
music?
think it does. That would have been good.
If you selected Rash, it should happen.
Yeah. That would have been. That's almost like an AVGN thing now. I almost have to thank James for that, because like he like cemented that moment as being like, yeah, this is actually hilarious.
I think if you pause the AVGN game or one of them, it does. I think. I have to remember, it's been a while since I played them. My favorite Rash thing is just his grab. He's the only character where if you grab someone, you can walk around with them over their head. It's like, that's such a weird thing that no fighting game does that.
You can
like
reposition them slightly, but not, Yeah,
you can't walk around too much, but it's just to give you a hint, like this is where that melding of genres comes in, and doing it with something where Battletoads feels very different compared to a lot of other like beat 'em ups at the time. Like even if it was way too hard, the NES version or whatever, it was weird. It was like more cartoony, and you could like do like a little dashing kick, which was like unheard of in 91.
Yeah, he's got Big Boot as well. Yeah.
Big Boot. Yeah. I forgot about Big Boot and stuff. But
I'm actually watching the trailer right now, just making sure that the Ram's head was in there.
Yep.
And it is. The Wrecking Ball one is really good too. Like
well, not only that, like at the time, like I don't think I ever played a beat 'em up that felt like that too. They were kind of floaty, and they moved around really fast, and like Double Dragon, you were kind of like kind of like just kind of plodding your way.
You're very slow.
You're running around. Yeah.
You move at a nice clip.
Battletoads deserves credit. Like it is a game that was kind of ahead of its time. It's difficult, which is why a lot of people might not have gotten to see like how good it is. But it feels different than all other beat 'em ups around the time, because Rare's just hitting on all cylinders, around this time frame.
And especially the arcade Battletoads, which to me,
it's really crazy.
Since it's on the KI arcade 1-up cab, like I will put that in, I'm just blown away. Like that shocks me. Like that game was a massive arcade failure. Like it generated no profits. Too. It looks so good. It has so much sprite scaling. It's so violent.
It's really violent.
it's super weird.
Yeah.
And the amount, like it's just a lot. Like when we're talking about AVP, it almost plays a little bit like AVP, where here's 1,000 enemies coming at you, and you have these gigantic, generalized, sweeping special attacks that like kind of wipe the floor with them. It like feels very different. I'm still like I think it failed just because Battletoads was like, aside from the hype of the NES version and that selling well, like it dropped off considerably and stuff. So I think Rare even had a quote that's saying like, we were almost like scared off of doing any other arcades. Like it predated KI by like a couple of months or something like that. It made us go, oh God, maybe we shouldn't release an arcade game. Maybe we can't do it.
What is it on the same topic? What did you guys feel about the latest Battletoads? Did you try it?
I did not try it in any form of co-op. It kind of came out like middle of pandemic and stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, there's a lot of stuff you can do in this.
There is.
Like, there's a lot of crazy moves and co-op stuff. I really like the art style. I wish looked different. But it's actual humor and like it's meta humor of no one remembers the Battletoads and they're lame.
Yeah.
And that the first level being a dream level where the Battletoads like were so cool.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I never would have thought of that in a million years because I don't know what you're supposed to do with such a weird franchise. It's different when you had Mega Man 9 and Mega Man 10. Mm-hmm. Oh, Mega Man 9, Mega Man 10. Mega Man's awesome. And he always was. Battletoads, you can't do the same thing. You simply can't. So I'm like, I thought in my head when I heard that they were resurrecting it, I was like, they're either going to make like something that looks like Rash and KI, make it super edgy.
That's what everybody was expecting.
Look nice, or I thought they would do the Mega Man 9, Mega Man 10 sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Let's just make a throwback to like the NES game. So what they did was like not what I thought at all. I think I didn't beat it, but I think a lot of people tell me it does run out of steam. Like it kind of goes on and on and on. You have a bunch of mini games you have to play and some of them are not fun, that type of thing.
That's what I was afraid of in my latest game was mini games that people could not get past. It's like I did not sign up for mini games. But that game, the new Battletoads, never touched it. I was in that camp of like, why'd they go with this art style? This game, there's a funny little side story to this. I was at, I believe, E3, the last E3 that happened. Not the E3 that just happened, but
2019
COVID and stuff. Yes. And so I was out in front of one of the Hilton. And I was like, I don't like the look of it. I don't know. It really turned me off from that. And there was a group of 3 people and that walked up and was like, oh, hey, you work on the River City games. I was like, oh, yeah. Hey, how's it going? What do you guys do? They're like, we made the new Battletoads. From then on, I will never say anything shitty. I will never talk shit at any event ever. And it made me feel like the biggest piece of shit because they were right there. Yeah. And I was out loud going like, I don't like the look of it and blah, blah, blah.
Are you talking to anybody or are you just saying this out loud to the air?
Yeah, I'm just like smoking a cigarette. I don't like the new Battletoads, goddammit.
Dog. I don't like this Battletoads that you're all nobody
I don't
else
like
is there.
I don't like the way their eyes look at me when I'm playing. No, I was with a group of friends and I was like, I will never do this again. So that actually taught me like a life lesson. So
there you go.
Even right now.
Yeah,
sorry if you overheard.
I've definitely had moments like that where I've been like, granted, it was. I still don't want to say what game it was, but it's like I'm being openly critical about something that everybody's being critical about, and nobody like this game is just pissing everybody off, and I'm just like, I just wish this aspect of it was better. And then you go to a trade show event or a Comic-Con, and literally the person in charge of that shit confronts you. What the fuck? Like I'm like, whoa, man! Like in person, like at the booth type shit. I'm like, wow. Well, I gotta go. Dude, it was nice talking to you. It's like this is an interesting situation and a bit different.
Yep. I think
you don't have the internet shield around you anymore.
Yeah. I think we might have talked about this in an early TripleKO episode, but I'll keep it short just in case we did. But I was like, man, I don't like the way that Street Fighter HD Remix looks because they had changed the art style briefly. It wasn't that like Ken render that everyone saw for a long time.
Yeah.
They had to change it because the original art team like wasn't working out with them. And I remember being on like forums and going, oh, I don't like it. I hate it. Why it looks so bad. I wasn't even like starting like my QA career yet, or it just started. And when I got invited to Captivate, Christian Svensson of Capcom marketing director communications just takes me aside. Is like, why were you talking shit about it? It was really hard to do. You don't know everything that went on. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And he's like, yeah, well, here's the skinny on what happened. I'm like, oh, okay, I understand now. And he's like, yeah, okay, enjoy the rest of the party.
And then he lets go of your forearm. Like,
you're hurting me.
Well, as Seth Killian said, like, Sven wants to talk to you later. He's really mad. And I was like, what? What'd I do?
He doesn't like your opinion about something.
He smartly didn't tell me about like any detail about anything. He's like, oh, he's just really concerned that you're here. He wants to talk to you. I'm like, okay. And then like I didn't know this, but then Seth Killian walks away going, like, that's funny. I trolled him really good. So yeah, after that, it was cool. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, especially if you're at a trade show or whatever, you never kind of know. And like at the end of the day, it's like Battletoads art style, even though like, yeah, still like I wish it did look different. It got people talking, at the end of the day. We've talked about art styles where like Street Fighter V. What do you say about Street Fighter V's art style? Lots of people have lots of good things to say about Street Fighter 6's art style, and some people have negative things to say about it. So
but they are extreme feelings.
They are extreme feelings, which is you want to invoke that. So on that topic, Bannon, River City Girls, compared to a lot of other stuff Way Forward had made, has a very distinct art style. And it's something that was in Underground a little bit where, it's kind of invoking the classic River City Kunio games as well. But in River City, like it kind of got modified a little bit. So it's like, looks more, I don't know, updated or modern, but I wanted to know, like, something I don't think we've ever talked about, like, what is that like your preferred kind of art style for that world? Or would you like, no, what?
No, they actually had to convince me of that.
Really?
Because I was so adamant. Like, I think I was even, when Way Forward hired me, I was maybe 2 or 3 months more of wrapping up Underground, which is the classic, like, little chibi, little squashed down, chubby little guys with very tiny limbs that I had to constantly cheat and, like, I kind of did the thing that the SNK Neo Geo Pocket Fighters did,
Gotcha.
where the fist would get bigger and stuff like that. So I was doing that for about 3 years straight of doing that. So I was very much in the camp of, no, like they've done this before on Super Nintendo or Super Famicom, and that didn't even get to the States because probably, I don't know, people didn't like the look of it. And so I was very much in that camp of, no, we got to keep them small. Then they started showing me the artwork of like, hey, we want to like take them this big. Like I literally have them. You might see them, right here. The like perler bead things.
Yeah,
and they are, I would say 3 to 4 times taller. So they did. They're like, I think we need to hit people over the head with character and just like over the top, like version of this. It can't be the same stuff because when River City Girls released, that was technically the 50th title in the series.
Damn.
And so they've been recycling that same look. For
like across all the sports games and everything. It's always except for River City Girls Zero or its original title, like which everyone was kind of.
And that's the Super Famicom game that I was like referencing where they are taller, but that was like, no, we want to base it on this tall version. Mm-hmm. That's where Misako and Kyoko really came from. So, and other than that, it maybe took me about a month later. I was like, no, this is the right choice. Like, we definitely have to make the series our own, especially with 50 titles. That's a lot of canon we would have to stick to, and we really didn't stick with the canon. Everybody has their basic kind of like Kunio. He's the hot-blooded student, so it's like he's still the hot-blooded student, whatever. But we could take these characters in a different way, kind of like the Ultimate Universe did in Marvel. It's like Tony Stark is still Tony, but he's a different Tony, but you could still tell that's like Peter Parker is still Peter Parker, but it's the ultimate version of him. Mm-hmm. So it gave us kind of some leeway to make it a different style and more.
You're not bound to like the 50 game history or whatever it is, of like figuring out. So what point do we stick this in?
Because I was going to say, when you have 50 games, it's like there's too much to be beholden by. So you might as well, like the right choice is to do something different and make it your own. So I agree there.
And not only that, it's probably convoluted anyhow.
Yeah.
Like I would imagine after all this time and other companies jumping in and taking over, especially since I made like, oh, this is them in the future. Like Underground is them in the future. They're all older now.
Yeah.
It's like, now do they have to make that canon and make sure it lines up with that kind of stuff? So it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't have to.
So when you boot up like River City Girls 2 for the first time, like you get very quickly into like the little training gym, and I'm like, yes, any modern beat 'em up. I'm always kind of sad. This isn't something that Streets of Rage 4 implemented at launch, but like every beat 'em up with any sort of sauce to the combat needs some type of training room dummies or a like a heavy bag to train on, because like it's almost required if you have enough depth to your combat. Like I want to be able to explore what I can do. I don't really want to do it when I'm actually taking hits and just experimenting. So was there a training room in the original River City Girls? I can't remember,
Nope.
but I want to say no.
So
okay,
a lot of this, and I've talked about this before. I would be a creeper and watch people play River City Girls while I was designing the second one.
Mm-hmm.
So this way, I would pretend, it does say my name, Bannon Rudis, but I don't think a lot of people, like some people would be like, oh shit. But other people, playing the game for the first time, they don't have a clue who I am. So I would just watch and go, what is this game? And they would describe it to me. And everybody, had a different way of describing it. So I would be like, oh, this is how they see this game. They're like, yeah, it's like based on Double Dragon or something. And I was like, oh, are you enjoying it? And they said, yes. And I was like, why? Because to them, I'm just a curious viewer watching them.
Yeah, completely neutral.
And then I would say like, yeah. And then I'm like, what do you not like about it? Because I'm on the fence about buying this. And they would honestly tell me what they didn't like about it. So that way, and that's what I incorporated. Like, oh, the enemy's blocked too much. Okay, I'll put in a guard break in there. And like, oh, when I'm on the ground, I lay on the ground too much. All right, tap a button and you can evasive roll to get up, or you can go different directions. Yeah, so it's all that kind of stuff was added.
So
from me pretending not to be me.
When I was showing the takeover at PAX East, there were people that were at PAX East that were familiar with me, and they come up and they'd play the game. They'd be like, "Oh, it's so awesome!" And I go, "Oh yeah, is there anything like you think could need improvement?" They're like, "No, it's great." I'm like, "Okay." And then people that had weren't familiar with me. There's lots. They'd be like, "Yeah, this sucks," and I'll go. At first I would be like, And I'd be like, okay, no, why does it suck? And they're like, well, why does my health keep draining when I use special moves? That's stupid. And I'm like, okay, well, it's because it's a beat 'em up thing that just happens, and
clenching your fist,
clenching my fist. But there's certain design decisions I'm not in charge of, because it was the takeover was made primarily by somebody else. I just help with stuff. So I was like, okay, well that's an old beat 'em up thing. You don't have to do that move if you don't want to. It's like an old thing, and it at least spurred me to go it needs some type of little how to play section just to explain why this is happening and what this type of genre is doing. And why it's invoking those old games and stuff. But when you start off River City Girls 1 or 2, but especially 2, it's its main thing that it tries to get across to you, at least to me, is here's this playground that you can go to this district and go here. Some things are blocked off. And I was saying to you when I first played it, I'm like, this does such a better job of just letting you get to what you want to do, rather than you have to do this or you have to do that. It just had this really nice flow. And that was something you said you were working on. So it doesn't feel as restrictive, because you start with the first game, you even have that meta joke of at least we're done with the school level quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
and that was the thing.
The school level was
I absolutely hate tutorials. And I learned from the first one of we'll get them through the school. They'd learn how to beat up, little tutorial comes up. You don't have to do the thing it just told you to do. Mm-hmm. You can bypass and just fuck it, whatever. But simple things like that, oh, here's the thing. This is how you pick up a weapon, or this is how you grab an enemy. Some people are like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to press a button. But then when they want to do that, they don't know how.
Yeah.
So in the new one, I was like, all right, lesson learned. So in the new one, we do save all that stuff in your Honker app that looks like kind of like Twitter kind of thing. So all that stuff gets saved. So it's like, yeah, it's there if you want to read it later. You don't have to do any of this stuff because I hate tutorials.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff in the game is like, yes, there is one place where you have to literally jump over lockers. So it teaches you how to jump. Like some people might not even know. And one of the people on the team didn't even know that, oh, if I hold jump, I jump higher. So anytime I'm designing, I'm like, people don't know what I know, no matter how simple it is.
And
when you
go ahead.
Oh, when you go into a restaurant, and you have to pee so bad, you're just like frantically like, where's the fucking restroom? And you're like, where's the restroom? And they're like, just right around the corner. Like to them, they know exactly where it is. It's like, it's literally just around the corner. But to you, that looked like a wall. That could have been nothing to you. So it's like, I can't just assume people know what I know.
Sure. Mm-hmm. And it's almost interesting things like you mentioned that there might or might not have been like clear and distinct information given about there being like a long jump, right? Like, or something like that instead of like a double jump.
Yeah.
It's almost like nice to the depths of certain games. And it sort of harks back to like classic game design, but they just don't tell you about that shit. Where it's like they give you the basic tools, the things that you need. And obviously as game designers now, you're going to be putting time into shit, right? You want people to use it, right? This needs to be used. But there's almost like a level of like sincerity that players will figure this shit out and they'll like it, right? They almost like add like little bits of things in there sometimes, and then you discover it like almost inherent. Like, what did I just do? Is that in the book? Like, is that there? Like type of stuff, and it almost feels good that way.
Yeah, and that the thing is though, in the old days, there was like 2 buttons. Mm-hmm. Now you have a controller that can 12. Do multiple different things, and that's not even enough. Sometimes you have to hold down a thing. It's like, I can move around with the R3 button, but now if I click it down, a wheel comes up, and then I have to push the wheel this way, and then I have to press this button to like it's. And back in the day, it's just
2 buttons,
3 buttons maybe.
Yeah. So when I was playing a bunch of old Double Dragon, it primarily just used 2 buttons. In Double Dragon 2, they did that weird thing where it's like 1 button hits left, 1 button hits right, and they're reversed when you turn the other way. So like kicks are always backwards, punches are always forwards, and then after that they never did it again because they're like, this wasn't a great system.
At least in the Double Dragon 2 arcade, it said left and right.
It
showed exactly.
Exactly, and it did.
I don't know if you even saw, like it was kind of a secret because I don't think we technically had the rights to use them, but the Double Dragon Lee brothers are in Underground. You can earn them, and I did go with that.
Underground, I didn't know that actually.
Yeah. There's you've got Bimmy and Jimmy and Sonny, but then I put in a guy called Gustav because I always wanted there to be 4 variants of every character.
Yeah, the quadruple dragons.
Yeah. And so in that game, I did go with the left and right buttons. But it did add this kind of like element to where these guys play very differently from everybody else.
That definitely makes sense in that context. Like they didn't like Double Dragon 3 wasn't even made by the original Double Dragon team. It was like outsourced to somebody else. So that played like even weirder. So I didn't know they're in River City Underground though.
Yep. It's been years. I don't even remember how you earned it. And I honestly don't even know.
But like you're like, not to get too far into it, but you guys can like show Billy and Jimmy and River City girls, but you can't, like, they can't be playable.
So that was just the fact that, like, how much are we actually going to cross over with this? This definitely is like, here's River City characters in a River City world. But there are, like, that was my main thing in Underground was I wanted a Bobo.
Wanted him bad.
I wanted a Bobo. I already drew designs for him being the principal of River City High and stuff like that. And at the time we were talking, like, we were working with the guy who made Double Dragon and River City Ransom. And I never knew the fact that, like, in River City Ransom, before you fight Simon at the end, these dragon twins come out to the Double Dragon theme song. So I was like, oh, there's like some connection there to this. But they were like, no. Even in River City Girls, they were like, no. A Bobo's in the future. That is a post-apocalyptic wasteland of like
that's true.
Whatever city it is. So that is why a Bobo in the first River City Girls game, he's underground. Like that's him starting his like gang, and like you don't see him technically because he's like this underground city like dweller, like weird.
He's not a Bobo Prime yet.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. He's
okay.
just getting started.
Yeah, because like Double Dragon depends on the game, but they're like, there was a nuclear war. So it's like River City and like girls doing dabs and talking on their cell phones. Is this before or after the nuclear war? Yeah.
And that's the thing. It doesn't make sense, and it doesn't have to.
No, it really
can be
doesn't.
absolute nonsense.
After 50 games in like one of the franchises, and like, you know, there being like almost 50 in terms of Double Dragon and ports and stuff. Like, yeah, I'm not surprised that like at that point, it really doesn't matter. Like generally, I did want to ask because like I haven't beat River City Girls 2 yet. But the amount of like moves that you get like really early on, like I feel like we might have talked about this earlier, that you seem to like level up faster. I just get cooler moves, or I can afford better moves. It's the amount of like fighting game stuff that you can do in terms of juggling, hurricane kicks and like pop-up attacks just seems to be like really amped up in the sequel. And like, I know Max played the first one a little bit on stream, and, 4 players local, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if it's like a thing where you like, I don't know, maybe Kenny or someone can like level up a few characters or get a bunch of money, because like 2 player is like fun, but like 4 player, I haven't even had the ability to really do that yet. But like when
4 players, absolute madness.
As it should be, right?
Yes. I mean, that is why also because that's the whole thing of like, I also, as a developer, have to remember somebody's first console, like little Timmy's first console, might be a PlayStation 4.
It's true.
They're not used to, like, I watched my roommate Mary try to play a top-down pixelated game, and it had like the Zelda, like the Super Nintendo Zelda staircases are just kind of these like horizontal lines. Mm-hmm. She thought that was a fence. Like, she couldn't wrap her head around what she was looking at. She kept walking into walls. Like, she's like, I don't know what the fuck any of this is. Like, am I up or am I down? So in pixelated games, especially with a Z-axis that doesn't like it's not 3D. It's not moving in 3D. It is a flat image that is kind of faking that perspective. So that is why, because of all the like pixels and stuff and the VFX that are flying around everywhere and enemies, that's why I added in more stuff in there for like player indicators. If you want the little carrot on the top, if you want a little ring around you, if you want both of them, because players just didn't grow up on pixelated games, and to them that might just look like blocks everywhere.
Right. Yeah,
but yeah, 4 players madness.
So yeah, I'm not like it's only online for 2 though.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was something that, like, it was always supposed to be 4 player, but with the Ninja Turtles game, that I'm not, this is not a slight on that game at all. That game's fantastic, but it is a very different game. It is a brawler. It is a arcadey kind of brawler thing. The River City Girls game, these characters are massive. So as I always describe it, the Ninja Turtles game is, if I ask Max to come play with me, like, hey Max, join my game, you are essentially bringing over maybe your lunchbox, you've got your phone on you and your wallet. That's what you brought over. Mm-hmm. But to me, asking like, hey Matt, let's play River City Girls 2, these characters have stats, they have level progression, they have recruits that you can attach to,
items,
accessories, the moves.
Yeah.
So that is like, I asked Matt to come over and he brought his bed, he brought his backpack, he brought all his toys. He brought like 70 friends with him.
Godzilla's.
So, yeah, pinging all that info back and forth to each other. It's an undertaking.
Then with the stats and things like that, do you think it technically crosses over into practically being an RPG at that point?
So as I described, like, that's the whole thing. Why I, even as a kid, got frustrated. I was like, why are we still doing these weird tropes of like, I'm losing health, I've got lives. Yeah. Once I'm done with lives, I have to try again. It's like, why are you
legacy there for the sake of legacy?
Yeah, so this was like, yeah, it is a beat 'em up, but I never consider it. It is, as I describe it, it is a beat 'em up RPG open world fighting game. Mm-hmm. Like, I wanted it to not feel like anything else. The very fact that you start the game walking right to left is already
is a taboo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, go fuck yourself. You're not moving left to right. But watching people play at PAX East, I think it was PAX West. PAX West last year, moment they leave Kyoko's house, and it's not even a spoiler, like that's the 5th scene after the tutorial stuff. When you're leaving, I noticed everybody walked right. And I would watch 4 players, they walked right, they hit an angled wall, and they all walked down to the bottom right. And it's the whole where's the bathroom thing.
Yeah.
Like they thought, oh, this is like the Streets of Rage thing where we go down and then we go here, there's a car that explodes or whatever. But everybody walked in that corner, and I kept asking, I was like, what are you guys doing? They're like, oh, I thought we were supposed to go this way. I was like, why? And all of them were like, I don't know.
So I'm not going to lie.
It was just ingrained.
When I booted up the game, I was like, this is awkward. Why can't I walk over here? Why I have to go to the left.
Yeah, I literally drew a brick wall in that corner that says wrong way, because I was from PAX watching everybody go in that corner. But it's just one of those things, like it's ingrained. People move to the right. Even Mario tells you, go to the right.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I've been really, really enjoying it. Thank you so much for, by the way, asking me for making the game, and also having me be a little guest spot as voicing a character in the game. It was kind of a thrill. So I
did it all for you, Matthew.
Thank you. I believe Max never returned your emails, though.
Apparently,
no, he didn't.
What?
Yeah, I guess the excuse was it went to an old email that he still has access to and can check.
My ass found about this today, and I was like, "Excuse me?" And I like, look this shit up.
Yeah, it was. Who do we reach out to? I was like, well, Max, he's huge in the fighting game genre. Like everybody knows about him, and this would be a great person. Like
it would really help the game out. But
yeah,
Max,
I mean, we needed him.
You made that sprite and everything.
And then I was like, well, apparently he's not answering the email, so I guess Matt.
Went to my personal voicemail. Yeah, I had to go back and have my heart crushed. And I was like, they were like, yeah, we're going to pay you and do all this stuff. I'm like, I'd have done it for free. I'm like, well, what the hell, man?
We tried, Max. It
was like almost 2 years ago. I'm like in the middle of a pandemic. And I was like,
he just refused to do it, Bannon. I don't understand. You know,
as we all know, during the pandemic, it was very hard to open up email. For some reason, we don't know why.